Hey, what's up, community? Today we're gonna have Yumi Lee, who is my friend. We go to a lot of festivals and concerts together, and I've been knowing her for a little over 7 years. We're gonna have her on. She's also the owner of Inherent Apparel, which is also, well, it's Inherent Worldwide, which is a clothing brand that focuses on bringing a positive message to the world. So we're gonna have Yumi Lee, who's the owner of, again, Inherent Apparel or Inherent Worldwide, and yeah, enjoy the episode. All right, peace. What's up, Yumi? How's it going? Welcome to the podcast. This is the Israel Casas Overthinking with Israel Casas podcast, and I'm really happy to have you on.
Well, thanks for having me, Israel. Glad to be here.
You know, uh, I think starting a podcast episode is always like the awkwardest part of the episode because then we're just gonna be chilling and actually kicking the shit after the
Hmm.
first part.
That's how
So,
all podcasts start. Like they kind of talk about something random, right?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. That being said, I just wanted to like start the episode off like one, I'm actually pretty proud of you for starting a brand, yo.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like I've seen the process. How long has Yumi's brand is Inherent. How long has Inherent been around?
Well, I started working on it starting last April 2021 and started kind of building the brand and like my, Instagram things like that. But the first collection didn't like officially launch till like 2 months ago. So I don't really know exactly what to say on like when it began because it's like, okay, am I supposed to refer to when I started like my Instagram presence and like all that stuff, or like, oh, when I officially opened for business, you know?
Hmm. So going back deeper into it, so the idea actually sparked, right? What is the idea? Well, I don't know anything really about Inherent other than what you marketed on Instagram. So you could
Oh,
give me
really?
like a little backstory and like more about the brand.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. Did I never share like the actual story and everything with you or
You
what?
no, you never actually shared the story, but the
Uh-huh.
fact that you were actually like putting in movement into something like that, I was just like, oh, supportive of it because it's something that you obviously believed in and invest in. And I'm just like, all right, cool. This is cool to see a friend do this. But actually, like, know deeper into the story. No, I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I guess I will give you the origin story of Inherent. So, I'm sure you know this at least that I studied fashion merchandising in college. Well, first, okay, let's backtrack a little bit. So, like growing up, I feel like I didn't necessarily have that kind of dream of like, oh, like I want to be this, like for a while when I was younger, I was like, oh, like I want to be a pediatrician because I liked babies and like kids and stuff, and they made a lot of money. And also like my parents would just kind of, Asian parents, they kind of just push that on you, like, hey, be a doctor, be this, be that. And then, getting into high school and, coming more into my own and actually thinking about like what I want and stuff, I was like, you know what? Like I have like no desire or passion to, be a doctor, and I was just, at that point just trying to figure out what my passions were and all of that. And it was, I think, probably around junior year of high school. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tumblr.
I
Did you
am
ever?
familiar with Tumblr. Yeah, I've actually skimmed through Tumblr. I had a little Tumblr phase, but it was like early on. I don't know what year exactly, but yeah, I remember it being like a popular like blogging and GIF
Mm-hmm.
space. But yeah, tell me
Yeah,
more
like
about that.
pictures and things. Yeah, it was really popular like back then in like middle school, high school. So, anyways, like I was following this one girl, and you can also ask people questions on Tumblr. And they asked her who some of her favorite like fashion YouTubers and bloggers were. And so she listed a few different people, and one of them is Close Encounters. Her name's Jen Im, and she's like a huge YouTuber. I think she has like 1 million subscribers, but basically, so I looked her up on YouTube and started watching her videos, and um she is who really inspired me to like get into fashion and develop that personal style, because as a child, like I did enjoy fashion and obviously, putting things together, but I wouldn't say, oh, like I had the best fashion taste, so she just kind of helped me learn that knowledge and just inspire me to develop my own unique style and just really introduced me to the world of fashion. And so from there, like I just really started, getting into fashion. Um, looking up other YouTubers and bloggers and things like that. And I'm not sure if you know this either, but so at the time, like having discovered like the world of YouTube and all that, I was like, okay, like my dream is to become a famous YouTuber. So I started a YouTube channel like centered on fashion, and I put out a couple videos. Um, but it was pretty short lived. I put out maybe like 4 videos, and then it just kind of sizzled off because it was kind of hard to meet with my friend who shot the videos for me, and just maintaining that consistency. So then from there, I was like, okay, like I don't know if YouTube's gonna work out. Maybe a fashion blog will be more at my alley, because on YouTube, I didn't talk in any of the videos. And so I felt like on the fashion blog, writing everything, I could kind of show more of my personality. So then I started a fashion blog, and that was also short lived. And I just felt like I kind of had this bad tendency of starting things and getting into it and all that, and kind of gaining momentum, and then, just kind of falling off. So, yeah, so those were like kind of my first um steps into like the world of fashion and all that. And then I guess going into college, you know, you're trying to figure out what you want to major in, what you want to do. And I still didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. Like I knew I wanted to do something in fashion, but just didn't know exactly what. And I went into college choosing my major as marketing for the first semester, and I didn't start any of my major classes yet, because first semester like is just like your core classes. And then I changed my major to fashion merchandising second semester because I wanted to be more like specific, which, it can definitely have its cons later on, I realized, because it can be kind of difficult to find a job when you have such a like narrow major. And so then from there, yeah, so I was studying fashion merchandising, and still knew, okay, I want to do something in fashion. Like I know that I have this passion for fashion, and this um I don't know, like gift for that, or that eye for fashion and aesthetics and all that, and creativity. But on the other hand, another one of my passions was like helping people, and like mental health and things like that. And so I kind of just struggled like figuring out like what I wanted to do exactly, because it felt like these two passions were kind of on polar opposites. Um, and like towards the end of college, and when everyone's like applying for jobs and stuff, I think that's kind of when I was just experiencing like that quarter life crisis of, oh my gosh, like I don't know what I want to do in life. Like did I just waste like 4 years of college studying something that like I'm not going to end up doing anything in? And some of those struggles were, or a lot of those kind of like thoughts and things also came from the fact that it was hard to find a job that I was fulfilled in, because one, I just felt like it's a very competitive field, the fashion industry, and they want like tons of experience and things like that. And it's like, dude, like, I don't have experience. Obviously, I'm fresh out of college. Like, I want to get experience. And it was just hard to find that satisfaction. And so, as I was kind of having that like quarter life crisis, I was like, man, like if I if I could go back to school and I didn't study fashion, what would I have studied? And I thought to myself, I would probably study to become like a therapist or a counselor or something, right? But obviously, like I didn't entertain that idea, because I'm like, dude, like I don't want to go back to school. And just the emotional load of being a therapist, I felt like it would be too overwhelming. So fast forward a little. So yeah, it's like I had these two passions, and I wanted whatever I want to do in life, I wanted to involve both of these things somehow. And I just didn't know what it would look like, because I felt like there weren't exact opportunities like that. And so fast forward, this is when I was living in Nashville in 2020, because I moved there for a job at Nordstrom as a visual merchandiser. And yeah, so I was still living there at the time. And then I visited Georgia, and I met up with Mary, which, Mary, shout out Mary. She kind of plays like a big role in me even getting to this point, which I'll touch on that in a bit. But yeah, so I was still living in Nashville at the time, and I visited Georgia, and we were sitting in a church service, I'm not sure if you're familiar or have heard of Passion City Church. It's like in Buckhead, Atlanta.
I've heard about
But
it. It's like one of those mega churches, right?
yeah, yeah. So I don't regularly attend that church, but we just visited for a service. And then I think it was like after the pastor, like after the worship and stuff, and he was giving the message. And I remember like the message had uh nothing to do with like calling or a business or like anything like that. I forgot what it even was, but I just remember I was sitting down and I just had this random thought like go through my mind of, hey, like I should start like a t-shirt brand or like a clothing brand, because at that time I also started really getting into like graphic t-shirts and stuff. And so that thought crossed my mind, and the initial idea, and it's a very extreme example, but I guess like the essence of it is still like true today. So one of the ideas that flashed through my mind is like, hey, like what if I started this, clothing brand and creating like t-shirts, hoodies, things like that, that had like little messages on them, like just kind of like short little messages that are encouraging and positive messaging, but like not cheesy, and actually like aesthetic and fashionable, because there are like t-shirts and stuff like that out there that like have those things like smile and be happy, but it's like they're just kind of like cheesy, or they're not that like aesthetic. So I thought of that, and then just saw the idea that you could be walking down the street one day and you encounter just so many people every day of your life, right? Like, and you have no idea what they're going through. And like you could be walking and pass someone who maybe they're thinking to like go home that day and like end their life, and like maybe they're just looking for that one sign of hope, and they just see someone like wearing a shirt or a hoodie and it says like this encouraging message, and just pretend like that was that sign that they needed, to just keep going. And so again, like that is a very extreme example, but it was just the idea of like, hey, like there's so many people like hurting in this world who just like need love, who need encouragement, and um to just like keep going, and to know that like, hey, like there are people out there that care about them, and so that was the initial ideas. And after that I thought of it, and I was like, man, starting a clothing brand, ugh, I don't have any money. Like I'm broke. Like I'm gonna need money if I'm gonna start this clothing brand and this business. I don't have any money. I'm not gonna think about it. I'm not gonna do it. And so literally maybe like months went by, almost a year, where I did not take active steps in this because I kind of let that one belief of like, hey, like I don't have the resources, I don't have enough money, so therefore I'm not gonna do it. And so that was the initial
Is
that's kind of
that
like chapter one of how I first came to starting the clothing brand, or the initial seed was planted, but I didn't take those steps yet to actually start it.
and the main wall or I guess obstacle was that you didn't have any funds, you didn't have anything to actually support this idea. So let me just stop thinking about it. And so tell me what's next. Like what actually sparked the movement onto it, the actual not just starting but continuing.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think just over that time, things just kind of like conversations along the way. Like I remember when I would meet new people, of course, the first thing they ask you is like, hey, like, what do you do? Blah, blah, blah. What do you study? And, I say, oh, like I study fashion. And like I've had thoughts about starting a clothing brand, but I'm not really sure. Like I want to think on it more, because it was still like an idea, but I just wasn't sure about it, and I wanted to also take some time to kind of sit on it and pray about it and stuff as well. And it was just like through a series of conversations, and one conversation in particular um, was with this girl named Sabrina Liu. If you're listening, Sabrina, shout out to you as well. But we were just having a conversation on Instagram, and again kind of talking about like, oh, what we're doing right now in life. And I just told her like where I was at and my struggles and trying to figure out what I want to do, and I've had these thoughts of starting this brand, but I'm not sure and I'm scared and all of this stuff. And basically, like she just really encouraged me, honestly, to just like she was just like, that sounds like a great idea. And like, I believe in you, et cetera, just kind of giving me that encouragement. And so from there, I was like, wow, okay. Like after that conversation, just kind of, gave me that little motivation to really think on it more. Right. And so I think that was February. When did I start this one? February 20. Hold on, what year is it? Time just going by so fast. Okay, it's 2022 right now. And then I started. Okay, so that was February 2021. And so fast forward maybe the next month, I met up with Mary and I just started sharing with her my ideas of like, hey, like I want to start this clothing brand and but like I'm not sure because like at the time kind of my biggest fear is like I was scared to I mean, I think a lot of it also does relate to like my personal journey with God as well. And if there's any other Christians out there, maybe you can relate to this fear of like, or this kind of struggle and fear pertaining to your calling of like, is this what I'm meant to do? Like, I don't want to put all my time and energy and everything into something if I'm not sure it's going to work out kind of thing, right? And so I was really putting a lot of pressure on myself because I want to get it right because it's a huge thing to start something on your own and I've never done something like that. So I was just talking with Mary about some of my thoughts and she encouraged me, dude, like just start ideating, just start brainstorming, and just start to let like your creativity and all those thoughts start to flow and see where it takes you. And honestly, like that, if it wasn't for her just encouraging me and something as simple as that, as hey, just start writing down your thoughts, your ideas, I wouldn't have gone to this point. I wouldn't have had the courage to even you know put pen to paper and start expressing my thoughts. And so I remember I just kind of wrote down in my journal like some like sketches and like some of the ideas I was having, and then I shared them with her. And obviously they're different to what as manifested today, but essentially like she would just encourage me like saying like, hey, like I think this is something that's really unique and like this could actually be something, and just really encourage me to start on it. And both of us at the time, like we didn't really know what to expect or see like, hey, like would this actually kind of be something big? Like obviously for me, I didn't want to fail overall, but it was kind of more of that mindset of like, hey, like just try it out, like there's no harm, right? And so that is so around April 2021 is when I actually, and after that conversation and after just having that time to contemplate and pray as well, I was like, all right, like I'm going to take those first steps and I'm going to start actively working on this brand.
And so when you started taking those steps and started actually like implementing these brands throughout the ideations, you were just canceling out, adding new ideas, canceling out, adding new ideas. What actually like what was the actual sticking point to the actual brand today?
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
So, for example, you have the eighth wonder, right? What does that like actually mean? So, can you give me a backstory about that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess just kind of first like sharing more on what I guess what the mission and the whole purpose and idea of this brand. So from that point, as I began actively working on it, I knew that I wanted it to be centered on like some like things relating to connection and our humanity and vulnerability and things like that. And some of the things I was inspired by at the time was, do you know We're Not Really Strangers on
No, I
Instagram?
don't. Mm-mm.
Oh, you should look them
Wait,
up.
actually, is their logo like red?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I know exactly which ones.
Yeah, so they have like 5 million followers on Instagram, and they have a card game as well. And the purpose behind it is like to encourage like deeper connection. And so that's kind of like their main mission is just like they on their Instagram, like they post like quotes and little messages and art, and it's to kind of just show that hey, like at the end of the day, if you really take that time to get to know this person, you'll see that we're not really strangers, like we're all interconnected at the end of the day. And so that was one of the things that inspired me. And I just remember like over time throughout my, latter years of college, like I really gravitated towards like, I don't know if this is the right word or it's cheesy, but like deeper things, like deep things of like the human experience and humanity and what makes us human and our emotions and things like that. And I guess another thing that kind of inspired me as well. And I didn't know this at the time that these things were kind of like inspiring me, but like looking back in retrospect, I'm like, wow, like all these things have kind of led up to me creating this vision and this mission that turned into this brand. So another thing, do you know Brene Brown by
Mm-mm.
chance? You should look her up on YouTube after she has a very famous TED talk and it's called The Power of Vulnerability. And she just basically talked about like how, vulnerability is a strength and not a weakness, which I feel like for many years society has kind of framed it as it's like a weakness, like don't show your emotions, don't cry and all this stuff like. And she was just sharing that like how vulnerability is the key to meaningful relationships, but that we're afraid to be vulnerable because we don't want to be rejected, and we don't want to experience the shame and all those things that occur when you're rejected. But on the other side of that, like you're not going to be able to experience those meaningful connections and things in life unless you are vulnerable and kind of put yourself out there. And so those are like some of the things that kind of inspired me. And then I saw at the time that there were other brands coming up that did kind of focus on this similar thing of like, hoodies, t-shirts, streetwear with like positive messaging, quotes, things like that. Mayfair Group and Mad Happy, they both kind of also like push like mental health and things like that to the forefront. So I knew like, hey, like this is an actual thing, and there are people who are receptive to this concept of, wearing these statements um, in your clothing.
It's funny because I actually have a Reebok shirt that's talking about like the growth, a Nike and Reebok shirt. Both of them talking about positive mindset. And I've
Uh-huh.
never seen them like, these brands, these giant brands, they don't really promote stuff like that. So the fact that they have like at least one piece that it's like that is pretty interesting. And that's growing, like that's a
Yeah.
growing trend right now.
Yeah. And definitely, I feel like especially, it's only been in recent years as well that people even or brands and celebrities and things like that have even started being more vocal about things like mental health, because there was still a stigma surrounding it. And so I feel like especially with fashion and accessory, things like that is a very kind of um that's like I can't think of the word, but like it's a way to push that message out there to the world of mental health and touching on those kind of deeper things, but in a way that's not so like in your face, like if you see someone on the street, like it takes like less than a few seconds to read their shirt, you know what I'm saying? And you can be impacted by that. So I feel like fashion especially is like a strong vehicle in that. And I feel like that's why a lot of brands have been kind of promoting more of that mental health, deeper connection, things like that in their clothing and campaigns and stuff.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the future right now. So right now you're inherent, you guys have currently clothing line streetwear specific, correct?
Hmm.
And I noticed that you started releasing stickers as well. Is there anything you're thinking about tapping into in the future?
Yeah, so let's
This is
see.
kind of like an idea space. So I don't know, like the things that I'm thinking right now is kind of like therapy. Like you said, you don't want to be a therapist, but you could potentially have like their like like a sponsorship to a therapist or a therapist sponsorship to the people.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Just give me 1 second. Okay, so I realized I was while I was talking your ear off that I didn't even kind of explain like my main mission.
Yeah.
Um, so the name inherent, essentially, it came from the word inherent. I just shortened it because I thought it looked cooler, but it's because like going back to that whole thing of like me wanting to create a brand that's touched on these things of like connection, humanity, we're all interconnected, things like that. And so I thought of the word inherent, which means like natural, innate, already existing as a permanent, essential attribute. And as I thought of that name and began thinking about the mission statement and the purpose behind the brand, it was this idea that, hey, like we, like, although we may seem different, on the outside, like whether how we look or our background, where we come from, and um, just our accomplishments or whatever, right? Like at the end of the day, if you really think about it, like we're more alike than we are different, right? And to kind of expand on that, there is this idea that we're all created with this inherent desire for love, but that also coexists with the inherent fear and universal pain that we experience when this love is not received. And so our mission is to, just help people come to know and live from this inherent worth. And if they were to do that, then a lot of the hardships and struggles that we experience in this world will be alleviated. Like so many people struggle with mental health and anxiety and depression. And obviously, like they, there's many different factors in that. But I firmly believe that a lot of those kind of internal issues and things like insecurity and low self-esteem and negative thoughts stem from this idea that, hey, like we don't know our worth, we don't know our value, and um we like put our value and our worth into things that at the end of the day like are meaningless, or they're not going to be stable. Like if you put your value into maybe something like your money, like what happens if one day you're broke? You're going to be like, dude, like I'm worthless, right? Or like if you put your value and worth into getting that specific job, what happens if you don't get it or you lose it? And you're going to think like, hey, like what do I have to offer? Like I put my whole identity into this. And so that's kind of like the main idea behind the brand, is that there's so much suffering in this world. There's lack of connection, like true deep connection, because we don't know our worth. And I feel like even that, like if people just knew like, hey, like we are worthy, like just as we are, like every single one of us, then it's going to also lead to genuine deeper connection. Because I think that a lot of the other things that people struggle with is like just being real with their loved ones, and kind of being vulnerable, like with their fears or with their dreams, things like that, because they don't want to be rejected, or like they don't think that they're worthy, of being seen and heard. And so that's kind of like the whole mission behind the brand, is like, hey, like I want to, show people that it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter where you've been, what you look like, whatever your story is, like you are worthy, and I just really want to push that out into the world. And that is something that I myself as well have also struggled with over the years, is just knowing my worth as well, right? And so there's a very personal thing behind it. And so back to kind of back to your question, where I see this is like, yes, it started off as a clothing brand, and I definitely plan to release more collections. Obviously, I'm still trying to just focus on marketing and selling the rest of this first collection. I do plan to, release something like maybe something by late fall or winter. I don't know if it can be a full collection, but at least like a few pieces here and there. So I definitely, am still wanting to um, have fashion be the center of it, right? But I really do see it being something bigger, like a movement, and like I want to have like events one day where like people can like come together, and just like events, like whatever I do end up doing, I want it to all kind of go back to that main mission and purpose of fostering connection, and bringing these ideas and these values into the open, and gathering and people who are like-minded and who also share these same values, and creating that community. Like that's really one of the main things I like to do, is just create a community and show people that they're not alone, that there are other people out there who, think like them and who have been through similar things. And one day as well, like I'd love to even have like my own brick and mortar even, and also have that act as a space that's like it has its own cafe, but also like maybe like a kind of creative space or a safe space where people can come and actually um interact like with other humans, you know, not because I just feel like it's so hard nowadays to even experience that um human connection because we're so attached to our phones, you know, like today like we're digitally connected more than ever, but we're more disconnected than ever, you know. So I like how what I see it is just like just really just kind of bringing like deep human genuine connection and interaction into the things I do. And I would even like love one of the things I started thinking about was having like an exhibit, kind of like an art exhibit installation of these ideas I want to express of connection and humanity, vulnerability, wonder, things like that. So yeah, I don't know exactly, you know, where it'll go, but I just know like, you know, I do have big dreams for it and hopefully I will be able to get there.
Yeah, no, honestly, with the circle that you already have like a very, I guess, supportive circle that's been pushing you, it sounds like. And as we go further, I kind of want to know more about the ins and outs, the everyday. So, what has been the most difficult thing about running an apparel company?
Hold on. Hold on. Oh my gosh, it's hot. Oh, okay. So I guess where I'm at right now is one, like I'm just like a one man band, one man team, whatever it's called. So I have to, I'm wearing all the hats of like, you know, social media and thinking of the concepts of the collection and also marketing and all this stuff, right? Which I have enjoyed because I'm getting to learn so much. But I think one of the main things I've kind of struggled with is the whole past year, I had this one goal of, hey, like I'm going to launch this first collection, right? Like I had this concrete goal, and that's what I was kind of tirelessly working on is building this brand, building the audience, pushing that first collection, and now it's been out. And I think what I've most been struggling with is just like marketing and finding that audience, you know, because launch didn't go exactly as I expected. And I know that I know that there are people out there who would love what I'm doing, you know, and who would love the clothing and all that. But I just feel like those people don't know that I exist yet. And so that's kind of the main thing that I've been trying to work through is building and finding that audience and also just staying consistent and you know not letting myself kind of like I kind of mentioned earlier in the podcast I had a bad habit of starting things and building momentum and then I you know start falling off like I really want to be consistent and so I think it's just about being consistent and maintaining that momentum and not giving up you know when things don't go as you plan and I think that's why maybe a lot of brands haven't been successful is because like they gave up too soon you know like I also have to realize like hey like I'm only like 2.5 months in of having you know launched this first collection you know and so to just kind of have that grace for myself and I think another challenging thing about running an apparel brand is just having that confidence in myself, the confidence in my brand and my product, what I'm doing, and dealing with imposter syndrome because like I don't know, I definitely just struggle with being confident in what I'm doing because I'm afraid that people are either going to be like, oh, you have a clothing brand, wow, you think you're so cool, and I don't know, or like they're just gonna I don't know. I just definitely overthink a lot. And it's just funny because it like my whole brand is centered on this, hey, like you have inherent worth, you're worthy. Yet I'm still struggling with all those things, right? So I would definitely say those are the main things is just maintaining that consistency and momentum and continuing to, you know, build that brand even if you don't see the results that you want right away. And just having that confidence and believing in yourself, you know?
Yeah, I can totally relate to having the comparison syndrome, having being a creator for a long time. You know, I've been in photography for I guess 2015 and I've been knowing you. I remember making a YouTube video with you like in the beginning. You were
Really?
like, yeah, you were one of the models. It was like a railroad. It was one of the most cliche things, but it was at the
Oh, it's a
time it
YouTube
was
video? I
yeah,
remember
that
the photography. I didn't know you were making a
yeah.
video.
Yeah, at the time it was like a YouTube video, but it was more geared towards like how to use the camera, how to change the
Oh,
settings. So it wasn't you weren't like the main focal point, but you were definitely
oh,
like there. You know what I mean?
oh, okay.
Yeah, and I compared myself to so many other photographers and videographers out there, and even YouTubers at the time because that was the platform I was doing. And it's just one of those things that I just feel like being all these years later is never going to go away, and it's something you have to ignore and stop focusing on the competition so hard because it's so easy to like compare yourself to them. Like I'm
Yeah.
literally out here comparing myself to everyone, and it's just a downfall thing.
Yeah. No, for sure. Like if anything, like I feel like there can be somewhat of a healthy comparison. Like if you look to these people and being self-aware of like not letting those kind of self-defeating negative thoughts get to you of like, oh, like I'll never be like them or they're over here and I'm over here, but more of like if you kind of look up to them, I feel like then sometimes, it can be a good thing or just I guess in another sense you should not comparing yourself to everyone else around you but just comparing yourself to who you were like yesterday or a few months or a year ago and as long as you're constantly growing and becoming a better person, then that's ultimately what matters. And just remembering that everyone was once a beginner, and every like people want to show the highlight reel of their life, like, hey, like I started this company and now I'm on, Forbes magazine and like all this stuff. I feel like, you don't see like all the crap that they had to go through. You don't see all the failures and the rejections they've been through, And so just realizing that I don't think that it's as picture perfect as what some people and companies and brands may want to like show themselves as.
Yeah. So that is well said. I completely agree. There is a healthy way to comparison syndrome for sure. And that's me picking at what other people are doing right. You know, videographers, photographers, they started making content, which is one of the main things why I started this podcast. I was like, you know what, I want to bring awareness to myself in different other ways. And like the people that I like am inspired by and to like I respect, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just one of those ideas. But yeah, it's gonna come to the end of the podcast. Is there anything you want to say to the people?
Well, thank you people for listening slash watching. Hopefully you enjoyed getting to know a little bit more about my brand and how I got here. And yeah, you can find me on, or not find me, find my brand on Instagram. It's Inherent, INHRNT, worldwide. And unfortunately, we're not actually worldwide yet because we don't offer international shipping yet, but the Inherent was taken. So Inherent Worldwide on Instagram. And then the actual website is inherent.shop. So INHRNT.shop. And then we actually started TikTok as well. And I'm trying to get into the hang of posting on there more frequently. So on TikTok, you can find us at Inherent.
I have those links down below. I appreciate it, Yumi.
Yes, thank you for having me, Israel, and nice to chat with you. And looking forward to collaborating more in the future.
For sure. I'll see ya.